Anyone up for a swim? What could be more romantic than that? Learn the way of water.
The way of water has no beginning and no end.
Hello romance girlies, I'm LadyJenevia, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. It's been over a week since I recorded my previous 2 Bridgerton reviews, but for you watching this, I'm assuming I'm going to just publish all of these one right after the other. Why wait? The corporate overlords see fit to just dump half a season out in one go, so why should I wait to tell you my thoughts?
You two have never had sex.
Our connection is based on spiritual, not physical intimacy.
I'm also already on the list for new film screenings for February, so there will be much to watch, much to read, and much to discuss throughout this month in between the release of part 1 and 2.
He only circles white people.
Flames on the side of my face.
If you haven't seen my videos on episodes 1 and 2, of course, I would recommend that you watch those first. But now it's time to move on to episode 3, which is called The Field Next to the Other Road. Benedict is taking Sophie to my cottage, and she is introducing herself to him by name. She's reading the stars and correctly analyzing that infamous English weather. It's only infamous insofar as its peculiar ability to bring about the demise of many an English aristocrat through the smallest bit of contact.
Hurry up, you wimp!
For anyone who didn't know, because they didn't read the book for research to discuss at length on YouTube, or haven't watched the many videos I personally made going over what's in the book during this unacceptably long gap between seasons of 2 years, allow me to catch you up to speed. In the book, Benedict was recovering from a nasty head cold when he went to the Cavender party. When it begins to rain while he and Sophie are on the way to my cottage, that makes him flare back up into being an ill, bedridden, fragile English aristocrat whom Sophie needs to tend to. In the show, we see that he has an injury on his side from the broken glass that he rolled on while tussling with a predator. See, if I was giving this a score, I wouldn't be able to give it a 100% because what do you mean that man is still alive? Haven't you seen The Last Duel? That's how I need everyone who does that to end up.
Homicide.
I prefer the way that the show did this overall, though, because I don't want to listen to a feverish Benedict asking Sophie to kiss him while he has a cold voice. I mean, could you imagine that? That's not romantic. And also, I would have been worrying about the germs and whether or not he had recovered enough before they have their kiss at the lake. So, like I said, the show's version is better. When Benedict and Sophie are trying to figure out how to get into my cottage since the front entrance is locked and the crab trees aren't there at the moment, in the book, Benedict goes around the back and finds a spare key so that he is able to go inside and open the door for Sophie. But in the show, Sophie figured out how to get inside by climbing through a window. Once again, the show version is better. It's always funnier to me to see the working class person being the only one who's actually capable, while the generationally wealthy aristocrat is flailing around helplessly.
You wanna go? Come on! No, watch out! Stop!
Maybe that'll teach the audience that the people who are hoarding wealth would be very easy to overthrow. What? Who said that? In the book, Sophie did have the thought that perhaps she should climb through the window. Benedict not knowing how to light the fire, now that feels very reminiscent of some other Bridgertons not knowing how to light a fire.
We should light it.
Excellent idea.
Well, go on.
For me?
I should not know how to do it.
You believe I should?
Miles Braun is an idiot.
Sophie being insistent that she will conduct herself like a servant while Benedict keeps insisting that she's a guest at my cottage. That is like the book. However, in the show, they let Sophie wear old dresses that belong to Benedict's sisters. I much prefer that to what's in the book because in the book, Sophie initially borrows some of Benedict's clothes and she's struggling to function because they're too large on her to be able to even stay on her. So she ends up borrowing a dress from Mrs. Crabtree. The show's version is better because we don't need to distract from the building romantic tension with this clothing mishap. And not only that, this way, the show's way, she gets to wear the signature Bridgerton color, which is blue. As an Avatar stan, naturally, I approve. I see you, Sophie Baek, and you are wearing the hell out of that blue clothing. It suits you, actually.
I'm definitely faster when I'm blue.
Did you notice the way that Sophie's gaze traveled across Benedict's exposed torso? I'm sorry, was no one going to tell me that Sophie is an urukai?
What is it? What do you smell? Man flesh.
I love the way that they edited Benedict's feverish experience of seeing Sophie and having visions of the Lady in Silver. In the book, there is more of a physical transformation for Sophie between the masquerade and her eventual reunion with Benedict, so he has a bit more room to get away with not recognizing her. By then, she's lost weight, she's had to cut her hair off in order to sell it because she needed money, and also, her hair had been powdered in such a way that it appeared more blonde in the book. None of this is applicable to the show because the time jump in the show is much smaller. It's only been a couple of months instead of, what was it, almost 2 years?
It's been 84 years.
Also, Sophie Baek is Sophie Baek, not Sophie Beckett. We also get a glimpse at the housemaid wars that are happening back in the Ton, so this has definitely been altered from the book in a way that I greatly prefer. In the book, Araminta keeps hiring new maids and then very quickly losing them because book Araminta is so cartoonishly evil that she expects the new housemaid to do all of the work that Sophie did, but also she is still cruel and domineering to them in a way that immediately makes them lose interest in staying there, regardless of whatever she might have offered to entice them to work for her in the first place. On the show, Araminta is merely offering more money to the workers she's hiring. If you're not paying your workers enough, they have every right to go to a household that will. I will side with the workers every time.
Death to the enemies of the people of the Republic. Hurrah! Justice is served.
I will never feel bad for a Bridgerton series aristocrat who is stressed out and sad because one or more of the workers went elsewhere for a better salary. Pay your workers fairly or do the job yourself. Anyway, getting out of that horrible place and back to my cottage. The Crabtrees have discovered Benedict and Sophie asleep in the same room. She's in the chair and he's in the bed. And this is exactly what happened in the book, except in the book, Sophie woke up screaming because they were looming over her. Girl, me too. Because the only one allowed to abruptly wake me up are either one of my cats.
Not a joke, just a fact.
Violet checking in on whether or not her workers are happy because of all of this commotion. Really? An English aristocrat worrying about workers? See, this is how I know that this show is a work of fiction.
Vous, au moins, vous risquez pas d'être un légume, puisque même un artichaut a du cœur.
Francesca and John have plans to get together with Colin and Penelope, and Eloise is feeling like the odd one out, what with her being unmarried and all. Eloise, girl, I will hang out with you. We will have a book club. Wait until I introduce you to Michael Parenti's books. I'm reading another one of them now, and I already know that that's going to be one of the best books I will have read for this entire year, when I do my end-of-the-year wrap-up talking about books.
The chocolate, Leo. You've had the fucking peeler in my head.
Eloise has to keep Hyacinth company for her prepare to enter the marriage mart lessons. We will just quickly jump over to the Featherington house, and let me be very clear here because I'm not going to keep addressing this throughout this video or the video I am about to film after this video that will be about episode 4.
I hate to break it to you, but I'm gonna.
I have never liked Portia Featherington ever since her cruelty to Marina in season 1, and I don't forgive people like that, ever, especially when you're a fictional character. No matter how hard this show has tried to make me regard her in any other way, I have refused. And what do you know? My opinion is exactly the same. Actually, no, my opinion of her now is even lower. I already know that all of these main characters need to have their wealth expropriated, and that their frivolous existence is nothing to aspire to in real life. But the notion of being so condescending, not only to Varley, but to the audience of the show, of claiming that Varley is treated like family and then refusing to raise her salary. Don't reason with your oppressors. They don't have a conscience.
I think justice denied.
Do you know what's a much better use of your time than attempting to empathize with Portia Featherington? Reading The Sword and the Dollar by Michael Parenti.
Not a joke, just a fact.
And I do regard this storyline as condescending because based on the track record of this show, I would speculate that they're going to try to have Portia and Varley make up after this rift that they've experienced in part 1. And to that I say, absolutely not. I reject propaganda that tries to make it seem like the parasites who reap the majority of the wealth that is generated from your labor are your friends or family. Varley, do you know what you need to do? Have you ever seen a film called Addams Family Values? If they were to commit to this and let Varley go free and work elsewhere, somewhere that she's paid better, and she never has to deal with the Featheringtons again, I will of course change my opinion about the storyline, the opinion that I have for now, but at the time of recording this video, that's my speculation on what this storyline will do. Your oppressors are not your friends.
These people are moving in, trying to push me out. Do you have any idea what that feels like?
Varley, go ahead and burn those hideous dresses. And not just the ones she gave you, but everything in her closet.
But, Debbie,
What? Pastels?
If you haven't read George Dangerfield's The Strange Death of Liberal England, I implore you to do so because reading that book and knowing what I know now as a result about all the nefarious things the English government did when the House of Lords lost their veto power, the things they did to Ireland as a direct result of that, I realized that I've been far too nice to these fictional characters and all that they represent.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hold my poodle. Hey, yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem?
Sophie's in a blue dress, a blue dress. A blue dress. The way that Sophie removed her mother's necklace before visiting Benedict for breakfast in his room, do you think that she will put that necklace back on? And then at some point in part 2, he will see it and it will help to trigger a memory from the masquerade ball? What do we reckon? What are the theories? Maybe this will already have been discussed online, but I quit Twitter. Very happy about that, by the way. And by the time this video gets published, I will have deleted TikTok off of my phone because of the Ellison family acquisition. So if you don't tell me in my comments what we're thinking, I will have no other way of knowing what the community consensus is.
I know my art seems like it's for shock value, but I'm just trying to get the conversation going.
Sophie looks so pretty in her Bridgerton family blue dress. No wonder Benedict is falling in love with her. How could he ever resist? And her yanking up the weeds in the garden? Hilarious. Girl, Ewa will gift you a happy life for your care for nature. It makes no difference whatsoever to me, the fact that we're officially in Bridgerton season time. You will get an Avatar reference from me as often as I please, because James Cameron is a romance girly, so it's actually completely on brand for me to bring him up whenever we're talking about yet another romance story.
I see you.
Francesca and John's storyline of her not knowing how to get hers, and also being worried about the fact that she isn't pregnant yet. I don't really want to talk too much about this right now, so I will try to condense where I'm currently at with the storyline and offer some context to those who might not know other details. This will involve spoilers for Francesca's book, incoming after the cutaway.
Actually, that would look wrong in public, wouldn't it?
One of the major part of Francesca's book is that she wants to have a baby and become a mother. And she is pregnant when John, her first husband, passes away. But after he dies, she miscarries. Her desire to have a baby is a major part of her and her second husband, Michael, eventually getting together. And the second epilogue of the book talks more about her eventually realizing that she's finally pregnant again after many years of trying. Being that they've changed things on the show, so Michael is now Michaela, if they want to still let her have a baby, she would need to either be pregnant or already have given birth to that baby by the time that John passes away, because Michaela on the show cannot father a baby. All of the seasons that we've seen thus far have changed things from the books, and it remains to be seen how much of what's currently happening with Francesca and John will, in a way, align with book canon. I'm ambivalent about the part of their story on the show that involves her being unaware of things regarding their intimacy.
Intimate?
Because with only part 1 being released thus far, it feels very much like an incomplete story. So I would rather wait and get to part 2 and see the full picture before I present more of an opinion on that storyline. Benedict and Sophie having some bonding time in the library/art studio. Absolutely yes. Finally some good food. Him telling her to call him Benedict. Delicious. The vibe of this whole scene is exactly what I wanted them to do. In the book, Benedict is too pushy and archaic. It's very not my vibe. And I feel this way about more or less all of the male leads in the book. Michael probably bothered me the least, but I also haven't read that book in almost 2 years now because they take forever to release new love stories in this universe. Benedict and Sophie flirting in French.
Quand me demanderai tu de sortir avec toi?
Close-ups while they're standing inappropriately close to one another. How long until you paint her as a way of expressing your burning passion for her? And then we will have what exactly? Portrait de la jeune fille en feu? You see how everything is aligning exactly as it should. A quick detour to the most scathing feedback that I have for anything pertaining to how people are styled on the show for this season, or at least the first half. Why does Alice Mondrich have a halo eyeshadow look like she's a beauty YouTuber in 2019? What are we doing here? And we know she's beautiful. This is not a critique of how she looks as a person, just being herself. But did we not already exhaust this talking point ad nauseum during season 3 of how you cannot introduce ridiculously jarring hair and makeup and costuming choices that do not suit the Regency setting? Now, me personally, I'm fine with the vibrant colors despite the lack of period accuracy in that regard, because that's more of a broad aesthetic tone you're creating of higher color saturation, of making everything more bold and vibrant, and how it complements the fact that you have tilted the Regency premise to be more inclusive and salacious than the most traditional Regency romance classics. But a halo eyeshadow look? Absolutely not. I was immediately pulled out of my immersion in the story when I watched this for the first time, and every time I've rewatched it since. If you want to do bold eyeshadow, that's what the show's promotion period is for. And actually, while I'm being critical, I will just mention this too. The wig that Mrs. Crabtree is wearing, what are we doing? You have 2 years to make this show, but you can't be bothered to just style people's hair as is. What do we need all of this budget for, if not to pay workers to create a believable immersive world? Did you know that James Cameron's Avatar films, all of those props and costumes of Pandora, they actually make those in real life for the digital artists to be able to use accordingly to do their work? See, I really need to go to Aotearoa and go on that tour. I might have to wear sunglasses to hide the overwhelmed emotions that will be leaking from my eyes. Oh my God. Benedict is restless from being cooped up inside, so he invites Sophie to join him outside, and what do, Mary Poppins? Why, they go fly a kite, of course. And Benedict's struggling so hard to try to fly the kite so that he can impress her. I know I've been correct to have Monsieur Capybara as my favorite Bridgerton on this series, because he moves like a man that's been written by a woman. He's playful, he's whimsical, he's not going to lash out if he looks silly or foolish, because actually, we appreciate you just for being you. Sophie at the lake, Sophie at the lake, Sophie at the lake, it's time. Benny Boo Boo, Boo 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 is skinny dipping at the lake and Sophie discovers him. Do you know why Benedict went to the lake in the book? He was so overwhelmed by his attraction to Sophie that he rose to the occasion. He elevated his frequency. He flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Swollen. Turgid. Tumescent. Perfect.
But on the show, yes, of course, I prefer this version because it's more sweet and romantic, and he doesn't immediately go and get really aggressive and bossy towards Sophie in a way that is unbecoming, like how it was in the book.
Sorry, that was mean. Let's fuck.
No?
We need to remember that episode 1 set the blueprint for their entire relationship. He leaned in, but didn't actually kiss her because they had just met and he was being considerate. But then the clock struck midnight, and she did what? She said, "You only got one shot, do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime," and she stole a kiss from him. So yes, he's not going to go throwing himself on Sophie the way that book Benedict did. Ugh. Here we have this building romantic tension, this escalation, this unstoppable force between them. You build that up until they cannot take it anymore, and then they just lean in slowly. You do it slowly, so that if she wants to back out of there, she has the time to do so. But she doesn't want to back out. There's a vibe. The vibes are vibing, and even Mrs. Crabtree can sense that when the two of them return to my cottage. But even so, Mrs. Crabtree is valid for reminding Benedict that there is a built-in power imbalance between himself and anyone of Sophie's social standing, and he should be mindful of that. Perhaps in part 2, after she has rejected your offer. Benedict and Sophie meeting again in the library. He's making art, they're full of yearning, it's written all over their faces, but you know, we still have a few more episodes to go. So, they cannot be completely sensible just yet and just be together, even though that's clearly what their hearts desire. We wouldn't have a plot if they just went, you feel that? You feel the vibe? How about marriage?
I'm honoured to be invited to the wedding of Kath Day to Kill Knight.
Sophie changing back into her maid dress. Our hearts are breaking. Not her looking back at my cottage while they're riding away from it. Don't worry, girl. You will be back to my cottage soon enough as Mrs. Monsieur Capybara, and everyone will stand up and cheer. Despite the sadness of this goodbye, of them seemingly retreating back into themselves, not feeling as though they're allowed to fully express their true emotions, the love they have for one another because of these various people who are telling them that it isn't proper. It's not how things are done. The yearning here is positively delicious. Moreover, Sophie is choosing to come back to London with Benedict, and this is an important detail. In the book, Benedict asks Sophie to be his mistress during their encounter at the lake. She says no, for all of the reasons that make sense based on her backstory. Because of the fact that she was the illegitimate child of a nobleman. Her mother was a housemaid. She grew up believing that her father would take care of her, but then he died, and she was thrown into a life of hard labor as an unpaid housemaid. Sophie is concerned that if she were to get involved with Benedict, if she were to accept his offer to be his mistress and then at some point get pregnant, there is every chance that her child or children would end up like her. And it's her central trauma. It's the thing that has the greatest influence on how she makes big decisions, such as whether or not to accept an offer from a gentleman like Benedict Bridgerton.
Why would any woman want to get pregnant anyway? And why would any man who loves a woman want to make her pregnant? You should only make people pregnant if you really don't like them at all. But
in the book, Benedict is very pushy and aggressive in a way that apparently, based on feedback from viewers of my videos covering this topic, was very common in romance books from the 1990s, and Benedict's book was originally published in 2001. So Book Benedict takes Book Sophie's rejection very badly. He gets very upset, and he tells Sophie that regardless of whether or not she will accept his request to be his mistress, she needs to come back to London and accept a job in his mother's household because it's not safe for her to go off on her own. At this point, Benedict cares about her a lot, and he saw firsthand the level of danger that can happen to her when there are men like Cavender out and about.
Demon! I will kill you as many times as I have to.
Sophie doesn't want to accept the job because her emotions are all mixed up about Benedict, the masquerade ball, hiding from him the fact that they have met before, hiding the truth about her peculiar status in society or lack thereof. Benedict does guess in the book that she's illegitimate, and her reaction of being stunned confirms to Benedict that his guess is correct, but she won't elaborate on any of the details, so he still doesn't fully understand why she's rejecting his offer when he knows for a fact that she does have romantic feelings for him as well. Because Book Benedict's personality is so different from Show Benedict, Book Benedict tells Sophie that if she doesn't come back to London with him, he will inform the magistrate that she has stolen from him. When she points out to Benedict that this could mean that she would either be shipped off to Australia,
we're gonna go Troppo this weekend. Hit up the Terps out here, eh? It's gonna be a cracker. Woo!
Or hung for a crime like that, Benedict says that it will be fine because he would simply request to the magistrate that she be released back into his custody. Benedict's custody. Another important bit of context about how they've changed the material in the adaptation process is that when Book Sophie is rejecting Book Benedict's offer and bringing up the matter of children, Book Benedict promises that he would take care of any children they might have. However, Sophie pushes further and asks Benedict, "What about your wife?" And Book Benedict says that he will have to marry at some point. The implication being that his wife would be some other woman who is also of his class. We have already seen Show Benedict tell Violet, before he had even met Sophie, that he wasn't interested in getting married. He was ready to just live his life as a free love artist. Now, those weren't the terms that he used, but I'm translating the sentiment of what he said out of its Regency-era vernacular. We'll talk a bit more about this topic in the episode 4 video when we actually see him make this offer to Sophie.
Among other things.
But I wanted to introduce that context now, just so you can have a sense of what is fleshed out in further detail in the book in regards to the interiority of Sophie. What is written explicitly in print that can only be inferred through expressions and other subtext in a live-action version of that story. Book Sophie thinks to herself, but the pain of her childhood was still too fresh, and the stigma of her illegitimacy felt like a brand on her soul. She would not do this to another child. Anyone who was following along with my gradually making my way through the source material during the off-season will already know this, but I felt that the book material only really needed to rework Benedict's material to match show Benedict's personality. That would solve a lot. And also let Sophie have her own agency and make those decisions for herself instead of constantly experiencing immense pressure or coercion from Benedict. So on the show, we can already see that they've removed Benedict being overly stuck in the ways of the Ton. He doesn't care about getting married simply for the sake of following that social convention. He said as much to Violet. The fact that Antony is already married. He said, Antony is the Viscount, his reputation secures the Bridgerton name. I am merely a second son. Benedict also tells Violet, my health is my concern and you needn't worry about my reputation. It is unlikely that I will ever marry. And another line he said in that episode, in that same conversation actually, he said, I am charting a more venturesome course outside good society. In doing so, I am being true to myself. Is not that the point? We as the audience who are invested in Benedict and Sophie being together, we're obviously biased about this, but even so, wouldn't marrying an illegitimate daughter of a nobleman technically align with those very things Benedict said in episode 1? I would say so. This is a love match, and Benedict on the show is a romantic at heart. He also has dated more than one woman on the show who wasn't of this higher class ranking. If he catches a vibe, if they have a genuine connection, that's good enough for him. And since he keeps emphasizing this point that he's a second son and Antony is the one who is a Viscount with all of the responsibilities that come with that position, I don't think he particularly cares about the fine print of Sophie's standing, or at least he won't care once he has all of that information, which will happen whenever it happens in part 2.
Are you crazy? I wanted 2 for the price of 1.
Anyway, that was a lot of information, but we will have even more to talk about for episode 4, which is, what? The episode with the title of the book. It happens every season.